What's going on, TIL Nation? Welcome back to our Let's Talk About It segment, where we take members of today's worship service, in-house service, and we ask them and we talk about some of the major points and revelations that stuck out to them in today's service. And today I have Mr. RJ and Miss TT with me. So RJ, let me start with you. Today was Same Grace. Pastor spoke on the same grace that was on Elizabeth was on Mary. And he talks about how his grace, it don't change. It's the same yesterday, today, and forever, and for everybody.
Right.
What does that say to you?
I mean, it actually takes me back to my grace is sufficient. That scripture in the Bible was saying, because if his grace was the same on Elizabeth as it was on Mary, that's telling me I got the same exact grace God's given to everyone else.
Right.
Whether it's, like no matter what you go through, no matter how you go through it, you still gonna receive that same grace.
Do you think that sometimes we believe that it's different for the people in the Bible than it is for us?
Oh man, a lot of times we do. Okay, it's like, for instance, I feel like back then it was a little more harsher, but yet it's still the same grace.
Right.
But I just feel like reading, I'm like, ooh, goodness.
They went through it.
Yeah. And now you're like, well, Lord, I don't want to go through that.
I want to go through that. Right.
But it actually, that's how it feels. You're like, well, dog, but it's the same exact grace that, that they were given. We are given the same exact thing.
Right. TT, when he spoke on same grace, he talks about the seasons of our life. Right. And the same thing God brought you through 5-10 years ago, he's going to bring you through whatever this new season is. What does that say to you?
I think we, first of all, have to believe in the same grace.
True,
that's not going to happen without you believing. Just because he's the same in the beginning, he's the same in the end. So even though they went through harsher, but I think it was the plague and everything else that was back in the day. So they believed on his grace that was going to get them through from what time to time. So
you spoke to earlier when you talked about how God was harsher, or it would seem that he was harsher back then. Pastor spoke about us always wanting to be used by God, but we want to be used by God the way we want. We want to say, hey, God, can you use me like this?
Right.
But Pastor say, no, God going to use you in the way that he wants to use you. How does that make you feel as a believer?
Actually, that lets me know, again, his grace is sufficient. Because you look at it, I'm gonna get in my flesh, but Lord, I want this, but I don't want to go through this.
right,
I want this blessing,
right,
but I don't want to have to walk through this turmoil, through this trial, through whatever this is, to get the way I need to get to. So can you just bless me with that, and I ain't got to go through nothing else? So when you look at it, you're like, you know what? But it actually helps you. It helps you become a better person. It helps you to understand and appreciate what God has given you at the same time. Because I don't want to go in last message, but still that thorn in that flesh, certain things you're going to have to be hit with and to be humble. Right. So understand that, okay, look, my grace is sufficient, but at the same time, I need you to be humble with this, because you know how most of us get. We get some, can't tell us nothing.
Right. TT, how about you? I know as believers, we want God to use us.
Right.
And we wish that we could say, all right, God, listen.
right.
This is how I want you to do it.
Right.
But that ain't how it works.
Right.
How does that make you feel?
Well, as RJ was speaking, I was thinking about the game Monopoly. What's that move where you can go collect
Collect the $200?
Right, and
go past go.
That's how I
Right.
think. That's how I think some of the believers think that's what's going to happen, is that you're going to go ahead and collect and do what you're going to want him to do, what you want him to do at that time. But it's not on your time; it's on his time.
Right.
Also, today we heard about a designated place for grace. Right. So the pastor's telling you that it's going to be your situation that's going to take you there.
Right.
But we got to be able to accept that you can't be. I think he says all the time, before God use a man greatly, he gonna first wound him.
Yeah.
What does that say to you?
All right. So what that does, that takes me back to, again, another scripture. His thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. And in that, we have to, again, we don't want to again go through none of that. But what it's telling me is, although this is where I'm trying to get to, this is what I want, this is where my thoughts are, it's telling me that, oh, you know what? God thoughts ain't like that. So you're going to have to go through, these particular things to make you better, to help you. So I would hate to say, well, God, use me, but then I don't get the lesson out of why he using me. Right.
Right.
I don't understand because so many times we want to be able to understand. Well, we should want to understand why we're being used in this particular way, or why this is happening, or why that is happening, and can't turn around and say, "Man, the devil is a lie." When yet God got you going through this
Right.
for a purpose.
For a purpose. Well, how you feel about that, TT? That your situation, you got to go through it to be what it is God trying to get to that place that He's trying to get you to.
And I think today, Pastor touched on it when Mary was used to have him. Even though he came and was birthed, into the world, he wasn't. He was a human, but he was also a God.
Right.
So he had to go through different trials and tribulations, just like we did. But he was still God.
Yeah. Right. As we wrap up, I want to talk about that. Well, he talked about Jesus' birth, right? And you would think that God would have him in a palace, in a kingdom,
Right.
in Jerusalem.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, Jesus was born in Nazareth, a city that was not known, but what it was known for was not nothing good.
Right.
What did that tell you about the Savior?
What that tell me is God can place you in any situation,
Right.
the worst situation, and still bring out that rose among the concrete, or beauty for ashes, as they would call it.
Right.
He can put you in a situation, and no matter how we may look at it, grim or dirty or dark, even back then during them times, you had, again, the kings living in the palace, and you had the paupers who lived in the city or in the manger, those type things. And it's letting me know that no matter what my situation, no matter where I was born, whether it's the projects, whether it's a trailer park, doesn't matter the situation I was born in. What matters is how I handle what I was born into.
Right. What about you, TT?
That was good, RJ.
Like where he was born.
Yeah, where he was born. Yeah, yeah. I think we can't. Like you were saying, we can't judge a book by its cover.
Right. And so many times we do.
Yeah, we do. We always. That's the natural reaction that we'll give somebody or something, some situation, instead of us saying, "Pastor, I'm my pastor. Lord, I'm grace for this.
Right.
I'm grace for this. I don't think you can put me in this situation without give me the grace that I need to get through."
Right. Man, well, look, I appreciate y'all joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Talking about what you guys got from it. And listen, TIL Nation, we hope that you got something out of today's message, the same grace, no matter where you come from, no matter what your start is. God, you are graced for this.
That's it.
And you will get through it. Thank you, TIL Nation, for joining us. And listen, if you would like to be on this next week, don't hesitate to ask as you leave service. Thank you again. Tune in next week. Here comes the church.
Here comes the church.
Here comes church.